Okay, let's unpack this right out of the gate. I was looking at this stat, and in 2017, traditional retail banks in the U.S. extracted $34 billion in overdraft fees from their customers.
Wow. 34 billion.
Yeah, billion with a B. And, the craziest part to me isn't even the sheer scale of it. It's that the vast majority of the people paying those fees are the exact same people who absolutely refuse to switch to a no-fee bank.
Right, because they think it's like too much of a hassle or whatever.
Exactly. They think it's too much of a hassle. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are basically tearing down the illusions we build around our own financial behaviors, pulling from Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
It's a great source. And that overdraft contradiction is just, I mean, it perfectly encapsulates the whole theme we're looking at today.
Right, like the willingness to bleed thousands of dollars over a lifetime just to avoid, what, a few hours of administrative friction?
Yeah, exactly.
So the mission for this deep dive is not to sit here and, debate the macroeconomic policies of the Fed or, I don't know, geopolitical impacts on the stock market.
All right, we're not doing a finance seminar here.
No, not at all. The goal is to dissect the psychological paralysis that keeps us trapped in these terrible financial systems. And then we want to construct a personalized, highly automated infrastructure that just runs in the background.
Which is so needed.
Yeah.
Because to understand why we get trapped in that, illusion of action, we really have to look at the foundational analogy the source uses.
Oh, the dieting one. Yes.
Yeah, comparing personal finance to the fitness and diet industry. I mean, it's a brilliant parallel. It totally exposes that massive gap between cognitive awareness and actual behavioral execution.
It is the ultimate paradox of the information age, isn't it? I mean, if you walk down the street right now and ask 100 people how to lose weight, practically every single one of them knows the basics.
Eat less, move more.
Exactly. Consume fewer calories, expend more energy. It is not a secret. And similarly, if you ask people how to build wealth, the fundamental algorithm is, universally known.
Spend less than you make, invest the rest, wait a long time.
Right. But then you look at the actual outcomes in both of those areas, and they're pretty grim.
Because executing the fundamentals is boring
Uh,
and hard. So instead, we obsess over the minutia.
we really do.
Like, the cognitive load of actually changing your behavior is so heavy that our brains just look for an escape hatch.
So true. In the fitness world, what is that escape hatch?
Yeah.
It's spending 6 hours arguing on a forum about the exact metabolic impact of keto versus intermittent fasting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in finance, it's agonizing over whether some specific tech ETF has a 0.01% lower expense ratio than a total market fund.
Right. Or arguing about super obscure tax loss harvesting strategies when you haven't even set up your basic 401k match at work.
Yeah, which is just wild.
So why do we do this? Neurologically speaking, why do we substitute trivial stuff for actual fundamental action?
Well, it comes down to the dopamine loop, really. The acquisition of information feels productive.
Oh, it feels so productive.
Right. When you read this dense analysis of a new crypto protocol, or you argue with a coworker about interest rates, your brain rewards you. You feel smart.
You feel like a Wall Street trader.
Exactly. You feel engaged in the process of building wealth. But it's an illusion. It's basically a psychological shield.
A shield from what, though?
From the really unsexy, often super painful reality of actually looking at your own cash flow. It's much easier to analyze a stock chart than to admit you're bleeding money on takeout food every single night.
Man, that is so true. Analyzing the market is intellectually stimulating. Looking at your own credit card statement is emotionally taxing.
Highly taxing.
So for you listening to this right now, we kind of need to establish a baseline of honesty. Think about your own recent behavior. Have you, spent hours researching the absolute best travel credit card to get lounge access?
Oh, the lounge access obsession?
Right. But at the same time, you're actively carrying a balance on an existing card at 19% interest.
That is the definition of spinning your wheels.
Exactly. So today, we are cutting through that noise. We're going straight for the big wins, the high leverage actions that actually change your net worth, not the micro optimizations that just make you sound smart at dinner parties.
But, to capture those big wins, we can't just jump into the mechanics of bank accounts yet.
Why not?
Because if we don't address the psychological architecture first, any tactical advice we give is just going to bounce right off. We have to look at the invisible barriers.
Which brings us perfectly into the realm of financial psychology, specifically this concept from Dr. Brad Klontz called invisible money scripts.
Right. And these aren't conscious philosophies, right? You don't
Yeah.
choose them?
No, not at all. There are these latent transgenerational narratives that we just absorb from our parents or society, usually when we're really young.
And what defines a money script is that it's invisible to us. We don't see it as an opinion. We view it as an absolute law of physics.
Like, money is the root of all evil, or rich people are greedy.
Yeah, or even something that seems harmless, like, oh, we just aren't good with numbers in this family.
Oof, I hear that one all the time.
Right. It acts as a psychological operating system running quietly in the background, dictating how you interact with money.
Let's dig into the actual mechanics of how that causes self-sabotage. Because it's not just a bad attitude, it translates to actual financial ruin.
It really does.
Take the script that equates bills or debt with profound shame. To a totally rational computer, a bill is just a piece of data. It just requires an action. But how does that play out for a real person?
Well, it often triggers the amygdala, right? Your brain's threat detection center.
Wow, okay.
So if your internal script links a credit card statement to an existential threat to your safety or your self-worth, your brain's main goal is to avoid the threat.
So you literally just leave the envelope unopened on the kitchen counter.
Exactly. To an outside observer, it's completely irrational.
Hmm.
Not looking at the bill obviously doesn't make the debt go away.
It just ensures you get late fees.
Right. But from a pure survival standpoint, ignoring the trigger works. It regulates your immediate anxiety. It's a terrible coping mechanism, but it's driven entirely by that invisible script.
And then I guess there's the flip side of avoidance, which is rationalization, the normalization script.
Yes. The everyone has debt script,
Right. Everyone I know has student loans and credit card debt, so paying 15% interest is just, the cost of participating in modern life.
which is such a dangerous cognitive distortion. Normalizing a massive financial leak guarantees you'll never build wealth, but psychologically, it's incredibly soothing.
Because it takes the blame off you.
Exactly. It diffuses responsibility. If everyone is broke, then your lack of money isn't a reflection of your own choices. It's just the weather. You surrender your agency.
And that desire to surrender agency is super critical for this next point.
Right.
Because this is where we have to wade into some somewhat contentious territory.
Let's do it.
A major theme in the source material is the modern proliferation of this victim mindset in personal finance. There is a very pervasive culture, especially on social media, that heavily incentivizes blaming external systemic forces for your personal financial situation.
Oh, it's everywhere. It's the politicians, it's the fiat currency, it's baby boomers hoarding houses.
Corporate price gouging, you name it. It's become like a competitive sport to see who can identify the most insurmountable barrier.
Because the moment you prove the game is rigged, you don't have to feel bad about losing.
Right, you're absolved. If someone posts on a forum like, hey, how can I restructure my budget to save $500 a month? The response is rarely helpful.
No, it's usually a defensive barrage. That's mathematically impossible because wages have decoupled from productivity since 1971.
Okay, but wait, hold on. I have to step in and push back on this a bit because those arguments aren't just people whining on Reddit. They are empirical realities. I mean, the cost of housing and healthcare and education relative to median income has objectively skyrocketed.
Yeah, undeniably.
We have a whole generation dealing with structural headwinds that just didn't exist 40 years ago. Inflation is real. So are we really just going to dismiss all of that as victim culture? It feels a little like toxic positivity to tell someone drowning in inflation to just stop complaining and budget.
And that's a very fair pushback. We have to be extremely precise about what the source is actually arguing here. We aren't doing historical revisionism. The systemic hurdles are absolutely real.
Okay, good.
Monetary policy, where you were born, graduating into a recession, all of that depresses your baseline outcomes. The text doesn't deny any of that.
So how do we reconcile those massive structural headwinds with this idea that we shouldn't be victims?
By strictly separating the macro environment from your internal locus of control. The argument is about where you allocate your cognitive bandwidth.
Okay, burst that down for me.
Acknowledging that the housing market is totally dysfunctional is just an observation of reality. But spending 3 hours a day raging about it online while ignoring your own 401k is a behavioral failure.
Ah, I see.
Complaining about the median wage doesn't magically lower your personal debt. The victim script is seductive because complaining feels like action. It feels like you're doing something.
But the return on investment is literally zero.
Exactly. It's the difference between navigating the weather and standing outside yelling at the clouds.
That's a great way to put it. You don't control the Federal Reserve, but you have, like, absolute control over your own savings rate.
Yes, you play the cards you were dealt, ruthlessly and efficiently, even if you think the dealer is cheating.
Okay, so let's say we successfully rewire that internal locus of control. We stop arguing with reality, we take full agency. What are we actually aiming all this energy toward? Because just having more money is a pretty hollow goal, right?
Extremely hollow. It just leads to mindless hoarding.
Which brings us to defining your rich life. This is basically the philosophical bedrock of this whole system. Most people just operate on this default, culturally inherited definition of wealth.
Right, the McMansion, the luxury SUV, bottle service at the club.
Right. Exactly. But if you don't actually sit down and define what you want your money to do for you, you'll inevitably end up spending it on things you don't even care about.
Just to signal status to people you probably don't even like.
Yes. So there is this fantastic case study in the source about hyperconscious spending. There's this guy named Jim.
Oh, I love the Jim story.
It's so good. So Jim gets a huge salary increase at his corporate job. Now, the standard response to a raise is lifestyle inflation, right? You upgrade the car, you upgrade the apartment.
Naturally.
But on the exact same day Jim got his raise, he actively chose to break his lease and move into a smaller, substantially cheaper apartment.
Which completely baffles most people. Why would he do that?
Because Jim actually did an audit of his desires. He realized he assigns literally zero internal value to having a big apartment. He's never home.
Right, he doesn't care about granite countertops.
Yeah. No. What he values above all else is outdoor recreation like mountain biking and camping and eating out with his friends. So by intentionally downgrading his housing, which is usually your biggest fixed cost, he freed up $21,000 a year in after-tax money.
$21,000.
And he deploys all of it completely guilt-free on top-tier camping gear and just saying yes to every dinner invite.
That is the absolute essence of conscious spending. To the outside world, people probably look at Jim's small apartment and assume he's struggling financially.
While he's secretly living his best life.
Exactly. Ramit Sethi often talks about his own early definition of a rich life. It was just the ability to order appetizers at a restaurant without running a mental calculation of the bill.
I love the granularity of that. It's not about buying a yacht. It's about removing the friction of a $20 choice.
So for you listening, you really have to define this. What does it look like for you? Is your rich life taking an Uber Black instead of the subway so you have 30 minutes of quiet time?
Or is it funding an art program in your hometown?
Or buying a $500 pair of shoes every month without feeling guilty?
The overarching rule here is extreme polarization in your cash flow. You spend extravagantly on the things you love, and you cut mercilessly on the things you don't.
Right. You can't have the best of everything unless you're a billionaire. Wealth optimization is just an exercise in extreme prioritization.
And that demand for extreme prioritization leads us directly into, like, the greatest enemy of actually executing this stuff. Perfectionism.
Oh, perfectionism kills so many financial plans.
We are surrounded by so much data now. We can compare the historical yields of thousands of funds. We can backtest portfolios to the 1920s. And the result is that we completely freeze.
The paradox of choice.
Yeah.
The cognitive burden of finding the absolute optimal path gets so heavy that the default decision is just doing nothing.
People will leave 50 grand sitting in a checking account making 0.01% for 3 years because they're terrified of picking the wrong index fund.
Yes, waiting for the perfect market timing, which doesn't exist.
Which introduces the ultimate behavioral hack from the text, the 85% solution.
The 85% solution is brilliant. It's the acknowledgement that in personal finance, momentum and time in the market are vastly more important than structural perfection.
Right. Getting your asset allocation 85% correct and launching it today is infinitely more profitable than spending 3 years researching to get it 99% right.
A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week.
Because 85% of compounding growth is mathematically superior to 100% of zero.
Exactly.
So if we accept the 85% solution and we've rewired our psychology, the immediate battleground shifts to the actual leverage you have in the system. Let's look at the foundational infrastructure that dictates the cost of your life. Credit.
Yes, this is where we transition from playing defense to playing offense.
Absolutely. And to frame this shift, there's this really funny cultural anecdote about the author's father, who grew up in India with a deep tradition of negotiation.
Oh, the car dealership story.
Yes. So the father is buying a new car, And this isn't just a standard negotiation. He spends 5 consecutive days grinding this poor salesman down.
A total masterclass in attrition.
He models the financing, leverages competing offers, and finally backs the dealership into an absolute corner. He gets this rock-bottom, razor-thin margin price. The paperwork is printed. He has the pen in his hand.
He's won.
He's won. But before he signs, he asks the dealer to throw in the rubber floor mats for free.
Which have a wholesale value of, what, $50?
Barely $50. The dealer is exhausted and refuses. He says there's no margin left. And what does the father do? After 5 days of this, he stands up, puts the pen down, and walks out the door over floor mats.
From an hourly rate perspective, walking away after a 5-day time investment over $50 is totally irrational.
Totally.
But strategically, it signals something vital about power dynamics.
It's not about the floor mats. It's about establishing who dictates the terms of the transaction. Most of us walk into a bank or a dealership assuming the institution holds all the power.
We view their terms as static laws.
Right. But the core philosophy here is that the terms are merely opening bids. You do not just accept the parameters you are handed, you go on offense.
And nowhere is that more critical and more lucrative than in managing your credit profile.
Absolutely.
Your credit history is this invisible architecture that dictates the friction of your entire life. It determines your insurance premiums, your ability to rent an apartment, the interest rate on your house. Yet most people treat it like some mysterious black box.
So let's pry the black box open. Let's separate the credit report from the credit score, because understanding the difference is step one.
It's fundamental. Your credit report is just the raw ledger. It's the compiled data. Every credit line you've opened, the limits, the balances, and a chronological record of your payments.
It's essentially your financial transcript.
Exactly. Now, your credit score, typically the FICO score, is the algorithmic distillation of that transcript into a single 3-digit number, usually from 300 to 850. And its only purpose is to tell a lender the statistical probability that you will default.
And we actually know the exact math of this algorithm. It's not magic. If you know the formula, you can reverse engineer it.
Precisely. Let's look at the mechanics. The largest single variable, which is 35% of the score, is your payment history.
Which is pretty binary, right?
Very binary. Did you pay at least the minimum amount owed on or before the due date? Yes or no? A single 30-day late payment can catastrophically fracture a pristine score.
Because it statistically correlates with a huge spike in default risk.
Right. Now, the second largest component, and this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves, is credit utilization, coming in at 30% of the score.
Okay, let's go deep on utilization, because this is where the logic seems totally counterintuitive. A lot of people think, hey, I pay my card off in full every single month, so my utilization is 0, and the bank thinks I'm responsible.
But that's not how the reporting mechanism works at all. It's a massive blind spot. The credit card issuer only reports your balance to the bureaus once a month, typically on the statement closing date, not the due date.
Wait, so if I have a card with a $10,000 limit, and I charge $8,000 on it during the month.
But you plan to pay it down to 0 on the due date.
Yeah, exactly.
The algorithm doesn't care. On the day the snapshot was taken, the statement date, your utilization was reported as 80%.
Oh, wow.
So the FICO algorithm sees someone who's highly leveraged, utilizing 80% of their available liquidity. Statistically, people who max out their credit are on the precipice of distress. So your score plummets.
Even though I'm paying no interest and clearing the balance a week later.
Exactly. The mechanism doesn't care about your actual cash flow. It only cares about the snapshot.
That is fascinating. So if you're preparing to apply for a big loan, like a mortgage, you should actively manipulate that snapshot.
Oh, 100%. You pay your balance down before the statement closing date, artificially suppressing your reported utilization to near 0.
Yeah.
You're managing the data feed.
Wow. Okay, what are the other components?
They're smaller, but important. 15% is the average age of your accounts, which is why you never close your oldest no-fee credit cards.
Even if you don't use them.
Right, just throw them in a drawer. 10% is your credit mix. The algorithm likes to see you can handle both revolving credit like cards and installment debt like car loans. And the final 10% is recent inquiries, meaning how often you're asking for new credit.
Okay, so we've broken down the mechanics, but let's translate this into actual money. Why should you, listening to this, care if your FICO score is a 640 versus a 780? Let's talk about the macroeconomic impact of this one number on a 30-year timeline.
The impact is staggering. It perfectly illustrates the big win. When you take out a major loan, The lender uses your score to price the risk. A higher score means lower risk, which equals a lower interest rate.
Let's use a standard $200,000 30-year fixed mortgage as an example, the bedrock of middle-class wealth building.
Right. If you walk into a bank with a mediocre score, say in the 620 to 639 range, you are categorized as subprime or near prime. The bank offers you a higher rate to compensate. Over the 30-year schedule, assuming standard historical rates, you will pay approximately $425,000 in total principal and interest.
Okay, so you pay 425 grand to borrow 200 grand. The cost of the capital itself is $225,000.
Yes. Now, let's say you spent the previous 2 years playing offense. You manipulated your utilization, you automated payments. You walk into that same bank with a FICO score of 760 or above.
Now you're a prime plus asset.
Exactly. They desperately want your cash flow, so they offer you their lowest tier rate.
Yeah.
On that exact same house over the same 30 years, your total payout will be roughly $355,000.
That is a delta of $70,000.
$70,000 in pure after-tax capital retained simply because you understood and manipulated an algorithm.
Man, that puts the illusion of action into sharp relief.
It really does. You can clip coupons and deny yourself a latte every day for 40 years, living in constant deprivation, and you will never, ever recover the 70 grand you lost because you didn't optimize your credit score.
Why are we arguing about saving $2 on cereal when the bank is quietly extracting 70 grand out the back door?
We major in minor things.
We really do. So, knowing the stakes, how do we select the right tools, the actual credit cards, to build this score while extracting maximum value? Because there is a very dark side to the credit card industry. Let's start with retail store cards.
Retail store cards are essentially the junk food of the financial ecosystem.
I always say, treat a retail store card offer the same way you would treat a text from a toxic ex at 2 in the morning. Do not engage, do not rationalize it, just walk away.
That is a very accurate heuristic. Consider this scenario. You're at the checkout counter of a clothing store, buying maybe $40 worth of stuff.
Right.
The cashier, who has corporate quotas to hit, offers you a 15% discount on your purchase today if you apply for their proprietary card. In the moment, your brain calculates the immediate gain. I'm saving $6 right now.
$6?
Yeah.
And what are you trading for that $6?
Right.
Let's look at the math. You are authorizing a hard inquiry on your credit report, which dings your score.
Yeah.
You are opening a revolving account with a terrible credit limit, which hurts your overall utilization ratio.
Exactly.
And worst of all, you are signing up for a financial instrument that probably carries an interest rate north of 28%. You are introducing a highly toxic liability into your pristine financial system for a $6 discount on a pair of jeans. It is totally asymmetrical risk.
It is. The strategic approach requires elevating your standards. You dictate the terms. You should only introduce credit lines that offer substantial aligned rewards. The ecosystem generally splits into two paths: premium travel rewards and flat rate cash back.
And there are people who take the optimization of travel rewards to an absolute extreme. There's this guy mentioned in the source material, Chris Hutchins. He's known as the MBWC guy. My body will only sleep in suites.
The level of tactical extraction he achieves is just fascinating.
It's hilarious. He leverages the incentive structures of hotel loyalty programs against themselves. For example, he realized that certain hotel chains offer a bounty like 500 bonus points a night if you decline housekeeping services because it saves the hotel labor costs.
So Chris, traveling alone, intentionally books a room with 2 double beds. He sleeps in bed A on Tuesday night, uses 1 set of towels. On Wednesday night, he migrates to bed B and uses the 2nd set of towels. Also, he can legitimately decline housekeeping and harvest the 500 points without sacrificing his own comfort.
It's unhinged, but I love it. No,
Man.
we are obviously not suggesting you need to architect your sleeping arrangements to extract hotel
Yeah,
money.
please don't do that.
But the value of the story is the mindset. He understands the mechanics of the system. For the 85% solution, the strategy is much simpler. Just bifurcate your spending.
Use a premium travel card for dining and flights, and a flat 2% cashback card for everything else. 2 cards, fully automated.
But the optimization doesn't end at card selection. It extends to how you manage the relationship with the bank. We have to learn how to aggressively negotiate fee structures, and that requires understanding customer acquisition cost, or CAC.
This is your ultimate leverage point. The banking industry operates in a hyper-competitive market. To acquire a new premium credit card customer, a bank spends a fortune on marketing, sign-up bonuses, and affiliate commissions.
The customer acquisition cost can easily be $500 or $1,000 per user.
Easily. But once they have you, your lifetime value, the transaction fees and potential interest they'll earn over decades, is massive.
So when an annual fee posts to your account, let's say it's $100, most people just swallow it or they grumble and close the card. But if you understand their CAC, you realize you have all the power.
Exactly. Let's analyze the negotiation script. You don't call customer service and meekly ask if they can help you out. You call and establish your value.
You say something like, I noticed a $100 annual fee on my statement. I've been a reliable customer. I put significant volume through this card, but I'm evaluating my options and prefer no fee structures. What can you do to waive this fee so I don't have to migrate my spending to a competitor?
You are directly threatening their lifetime value metric. The frontline representative is literally looking at a CRM software screen that calculates your profitability. They have a matrix of retention offers they are authorized to use.
They know it costs them vastly more to let you defect to a competitor than it does to simply credit the $100 back to your account.
And the exact same dynamic applies to interest rates. If you are carrying a balance, you are the most profitable type of customer. If you call and inform them that another bank has pre-approved you for a 0% balance transfer, but you'd prefer to stay if they just lower your current APR by 5%.
The math heavily favors them granting the reduction. They'd rather earn 12% on your debt than 0% when you leave.
Exactly.
This level of aggressive negotiation is deeply empowering, but, and this is a massive structural but, here is where the conversation takes a very dark turn.
Because optimizing rewards is completely irrelevant if you're carrying revolving debt.
Exactly. The moment you carry a balance, the mathematics invert. You are no longer playing the system is cannibalizing you. Let's transition into the brutal reality of crushing debt.
We really have to strip away the euphemisms here. A credit card, when paid in full, is an incredibly efficient tool. It provides a 30-day interest-free float and fraud protection.
But the moment you fail to clear the principal,
It transforms into an unsecured, variable rate loan with punitive pricing. And the architecture of credit card debt is specifically designed to maximize the extraction of your future labor.
let's examine their primary weapon, the minimum payment. The concept of the minimum payment is just a masterpiece of actuarial psychology.
It truly is.
It's presented on your statement almost as a helpful suggestion. Oh, you owe $5,000, but don't worry, your minimum payment is only $85. It feels manageable.
Which is exactly the intent. The minimum payment is mathematically calibrated to accomplish two conflicting goals for the bank. First, it has to be low enough to prevent immediate default, because if it's too high, you give up, declare bankruptcy, and the bank takes a total loss.
Right.
But second, it must be just high enough to slowly, agonizingly amortize the principal, ensuring that you remain trapped in an optimal yield curve for the maximum possible duration.
Let's run the actual math on this just to show the true cost. We have a hypothetical scenario from the text, Dumb Dan versus Smart Sally. Let's say Dan has $5,000 in credit card debt at a 14% interest rate.
Yeah.
He decides to just pay the minimum, which is usually around 2% of the balance.
If Dan strictly adheres to that minimum payment, the duration of the loan becomes catastrophic because it's a percentage. As the balance slowly decreases, his payment also decreases. It stretches the schedule to its absolute limit.
It will take him over 25 years to clear a $5,000 balance.
25 years. You'll be paying off a laptop you bought in your 20s, well into your 50s.
Now, what's the total interest cost on that?
Over that quarter century, the total interest paid will exceed $6,000.
Wow.
The cost of capital is greater than the initial principal. The bank successfully extracts over a decade of yield. And this reveals a fascinating inversion of terminology within the credit industry.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Customers who pay their balances in full every month, generating zero interest revenue, are internally referred to by card issuers as deadbeats.
You want to be a deadbeat. It's literally the highest compliment you can receive from a bank. But let's look at the alternative. Smart Sally. She has the exact same $5,000 debt at 14%, but she completely ignores the minimum payment suggestion. She locks in a fixed payment of $100 every single month.
The mathematics collapse the timeline. By fixing the payment above the minimum threshold, a much larger percentage of her cash flow attacks the principal directly. Sally pays off the debt in roughly 6 years and limits the total interest to around $2,500.
She rescued nearly 20 years of her life and saved almost $4,000 just by decoupling her behavior from the bank's algorithm.
And if she aggressively attacks it, say, fixing the payment at $200 a month, the debt is eradicated in 2.5 years with less than $1,000 in interest.
The leverage you have is your surplus cash flow. But this introduces a major tactical debate. When a person wakes up to this reality and decides to attack their debt, they usually have balances across multiple cards. How do they prioritize the attack?
This is one of the most hotly debated topics in personal finance because it pits pure algorithmic efficiency against behavioral psychology.
Yeah.
You have two primary frameworks. The first is the standard method, sometimes called the avalanche.
This is the purely rational mathematical approach,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. You pay the minimums on all your accounts to avoid default, and you direct every dollar of surplus capital toward the debt with the highest interest rate.
Because mathematically, that specific debt is compounding at the fastest velocity. By killing the highest interest rate first, you minimize the total amount of interest paid over the life of all the combined debts.
Exactly. But then you have the competing framework, the snowball method, heavily popularized by figures like Dave Ramsey. In this model, you completely ignore the interest rates. You list your debts by total balance size. You pay the minimums on everything, and you throw all your surplus at the absolute smallest balance first.
Okay, I have to step in and champion the avalanche method here. Why would anyone knowingly choose a mathematically inferior strategy? Like, if my goal is to retain as much of my money as possible, paying off a 5% loan just because it's small, while allowing a 22% loan to compound in the background, I mean, that's burning money. It's objectively irrational. Shouldn't we just follow the math?
This is where we have to synthesize the quantitative with the deeply psychological. If human beings operated as perfectly rational algorithms, your critique would be flawless.
Right.
But if human beings were perfectly rational, nobody would be in $20,000 of credit card debt in the first place. The presence of the debt itself proves that the underlying behavior is driven by emotion and impulse.
So you're saying you can't solve an emotional problem with a purely mathematical solution?
Precisely. The snowball method is fundamentally an exercise in cognitive behavioral therapy disguised as financial advice.
Oh, that's interesting.
When someone is staring at a mountain of debt across 5 different accounts, they are suffering from learned helplessness. It feels impossible. The snowball method manufactures early, rapid victories.
Like crossing something off a list.
Exactly. When you attack that small $500 medical bill and completely eradicate it in 2 months, you get to cross an entire line item off your spreadsheet. You close the account. You receive an immediate, powerful psychological reward.
It creates behavioral momentum.
Yes, that dopamine hit reinforces the new, austere budgeting behavior. Studies consistently show that while the avalanche method is cheaper on paper, the snowball method has a significantly higher rate of actual completion for people struggling with debt fatigue.
Because the ultimate cost of the avalanche method is often just giving up entirely.
Right. The slightly higher interest paid in the snowball method is essentially the premium you pay to guarantee your own compliance.
It's an investment in your own psychology. I love that reframing. And what about the other major hack people use for debt? The 0% balance transfer shuffle.
The balance transfer strategy is incredibly dangerous for the exact same behavioral reasons. It looks like a masterstroke. You open a new card offering 0% interest for 18 months, transfer your high-interest debt over, and mathematically halt the compounding.
Sounds perfect, right? You're starving the bank of yield.
It is perfect if the underlying spending behavior has been permanently cured. But typically it hasn't. What usually happens is a devastating shell game. The consumer moves $5,000 from card A to card B. Card A now has a 0 balance. The consumer feels this massive sense of relief. They feel like they've handled the problem, even though their aggregate liabilities haven't dropped a single cent.
Ah, they experience the illusion of action again.
Exactly. And because the psychological pressure is gone, they slowly start using card A again. 18 months later, the promotional rate on card B expires and jumps to 24%. Card A is now maxed out again. They have effectively doubled their debt load.
Wow.
Balance transfers treat the symptom while exacerbating the disease. The only actual cure for debt is the painful application of principal-reducing payments.
And that philosophy applies equally to the other great anchor of modern finance, student loans. The text notes that we really have to look at the amortization schedule. A standard 10-year student loan plan is designed, much like a mortgage, to front-load the interest.
Yes, in the early years, the vast majority of your monthly payment goes directly to the lender's yield, barely touching the principal.
So the mechanics of overcoming this are identical to credit cards. You must overpay. And crucially, you have to formally instruct the loan servicer to apply the overpayment directly to the principal balance, not just advance the date of your next payment.
By attacking the principal, you destroy the base upon which the future interest is calculated. Allocating even $50 extra a month directly to principal can shave years off the duration of the loan.
Okay, so we've established the defensive perimeter, we've optimized the credit profile, we're ruthlessly executing a debt eradication algorithm, and as a result, we are generating a surplus cash flow.
Right.
Where does that capital go? Because the default assumption is to just leave it in the checking account of whatever bank we happen to already use. Which brings us to our final major structural shift: firing your bank and building an optimized infrastructure.
The banks you select are the physical plumbing of your automated system. If the pipes are leaking, it doesn't matter how much water you pump through them. And legacy brick-and-mortar banks are fundamentally designed to leak your capital.
Ramit uses this fantastic heuristic to evaluate banks, which he calls the 30-second test.
I love this one.
Think of it in the context of hospitality. If you walk into a high-end restaurant, approach the host stand, and the staff actively avoids eye contact with you while chatting among themselves for 30 seconds, you don't sit down and expect a Michelin star meal. You turn around and leave.
Because the culture of the institution is immediately apparent. When institutions show you their baseline culture, believe them.
And the baseline culture of legacy banking has been repeatedly and demonstrably exposed. Let's return to that $34 billion overdraft figure from the intro. That is not an accident of accounting. It is a highly engineered revenue stream.
Historically, banks made money through the net interest margin, taking your deposits and lending them out at a higher rate. But as interest rates compressed over the last couple of decades, they shifted their profit centers toward punitive fee extraction.
They basically weaponized the checking account. And the sheer audacity of how they optimize those fees is terrifying. They didn't just wait for you to overdraw. There were widespread practices of reordering the sequence of your daily transactions to deliberately trigger multiple overdrafts.
This is the worst part.
Right. Like if you bought a coffee for $4, a sandwich for $10, and then paid a rent check for $1,000 that tipped your account slightly negative, the bank's algorithm wouldn't process them chronologically. It would clear the massive rent check first to put your account in the negative, and then process the coffee and the sandwich, hitting you with a $35 insufficient funds fee for every single subsequent microtransaction.
It is predatory optimization, pure and simple. And it culminated in the ultimate cultural exposure: the Wells Fargo cross-selling scandal.
Unbelievable scandal.
The management heavily incentivized frontline employees with impossible sales quotas, demanding they sell 8 different financial products to every single customer. The structural result was inevitable. Employees, desperate to keep their jobs, fraudulently opened over 1.5 million unauthorized accounts in their customers' names.
They were forging signatures, they were moving customers' money around without consent just to hit internal metrics. And it wasn't just a victimless clerical error. These unauthorized accounts triggered cascading fees, it damaged people's credit scores. Wells Fargo even forced redundant auto insurance policies onto 500,000 borrowers.
Which directly resulted in the wrongful repossession of over 20,000 vehicles.
People literally lost their means of getting to work because their bank's profit algorithm needed a slight boost.
This is the institutional reality, and yet we return to the paradox. When you confront the average consumer with this data, when you prove their institution is systematically hostile, their response is almost universally rooted in inertia.
They deploy the invisible scripts again. My direct deposit is already set up, or all my bill pays are linked, or the deeply irrational one: I opened this account when I was 16, it's my first bank.
Assigning sentimental value to a multinational conglomerate that actively views you as prey. It is the ultimate financial leak. The perceived friction of spending 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon moving your direct deposits is somehow viewed as a greater cost than bleeding thousands of dollars in hidden fees over the next 30 years.
To build wealth, you must overcome that inertia. You have to design an infrastructure that works for you. And the core architectural recommendation for this is the concept of strategic decoupling. You must legally and geographically separate your checking account from your savings account.
They should exist at entirely different corporate institutions.
Let's dive deep into the psychology of this decoupling. Why is this so critical? Like, if I find a great bank, why shouldn't I just keep all my money under one roof for convenience?
Because convenience is the enemy of accumulation. You are trying to protect your capital from your own limbic system.
Okay, unpack that.
A checking account is an operational vehicle. It's high velocity. It's for immediate deployment, paying rent, buying groceries. A savings account is a temporal vehicle. It's designed to capture and hold capital for future deployment, like an emergency fund or a down payment.
So the functions are inherently at odds.
Exactly. If you house your savings account in the exact same app interface as your checking account, you destroy the barrier between future goals and present desires. When you log in on a Friday night to see if you have enough cash to go to an expensive restaurant, you don't just see your checking balance. You see an aggregated total. You see a massive pool of liquidity.
You see the 10 grand you save for a roof repair, but your brain just processes it as, I am incredibly liquid right now.
And the friction to access that capital is literally zero. With one swipe, the interface instantaneously transfers the funds from savings to checking. You cannibalize your future security to fund a Friday night impulse. By decoupling them, placing your savings at a completely different digital-only bank, you manufacture geographical friction.
I love this. It's using our own innate laziness as a defensive perimeter. If I'm out on a Friday and I want to tap my savings, I have to log into a different app, initiate an ACH transfer, and wait 3 business days for the funds to clear. The temporal delay breaks the impulse loop. By the time the money arrives on Tuesday, the desire to buy a round of expensive drinks is completely gone.
You are structurally enforcing discipline.
So, what specific architecture achieves this? On the checking side, the gold standard recommended in the text is the Schwab Bank Investor Checking Account.
It really is an apex predator in the checking account ecosystem. It carries no monthly maintenance fees, no minimum balance requirements, and it structurally rejects the fee extraction model.
And the ultimate feature of the Schwab account, which completely alters your relationship with physical cash, is the unlimited ATM fee reimbursement globally.
Oh, this feature is life-changing.
The mechanics of ATMs are usually just micro-extortion. The machine operator charges you $4, and your own bank often charges you a $3 out-of-network fee. You pay $7 to access your own capital. Schwab completely neuters this. You can pull cash from a high-fee kiosk in a Vegas casino, or a bodega in Manhattan, or an independent terminal in Tokyo. At the end of the month, Schwab's system automatically tallies every predatory fee you were charged and directly deposits that exact amount back into your account.
It reduces the cognitive load of travel and daily life to zero. You never have to hunt for an in-network machine again.
Now, on the savings side, the decoupled entity should be a high-yield online savings account. Institutions like Capital One 360, Ally Bank, or Marcus.
And we really need to explain why these specific banks can offer yields that are orders of magnitude higher than legacy banks. It's not benevolence, it's macroeconomic structure.
Right. Legacy banks like Chase or Bank of America have to maintain thousands of physical retail branches. They carry massive commercial real estate portfolios. They employ tens of thousands of tellers and branch managers.
That overhead is staggering. To fund that infrastructure, they suppress the yield they pay on customer deposits to effectively zero, usually 0.01%. Digital-only banks have stripped out the physical infrastructure. Their operational overhead is a fraction of the legacy banks.
So they take the margins saved on real estate and pass a significant portion of it back to the depositor in the form of a higher APY, usually pacing inflation much more effectively.
But they also offer a critical psychological tool, the sub-account feature.
Oh, I use this all the time.
Yes. Instead of viewing your savings as one giant amorphous blob of capital, these interfaces allow you to partition the liquidity into dedicated labeled buckets. You can create a distinct sub-account labeled emergency fund, another labeled wedding, and another labeled new car.
This utilizes the behavioral economics concept of mental accounting. It is psychologically much harder to cannibalize a fund specifically labeled emergency medical buffer to buy a new television than it is to just pull from a generic savings account. You force yourself to confront exactly what future security you are sacrificing. But let me interrupt this optimization process with a question about yield. I'm looking at the landscape right now. Ally is offering, say, 4.2% AQY, but there is a brand new VC-backed fintech app offering 4.6% APY as a promotional rate. Shouldn't I instantly pivot my capital to capture that spread? Doesn't every basis point matter in compounding?
This is a phenomenal trap. Ramit Sethi aggressively mocks this behavior, classifying these people as rate chasers. It is the ultimate manifestation of majoring in minor things. We have to analyze the opportunity cost of your time.
Okay, let's run the math on the spread.
Let's assume you have a healthy emergency fund of $10,000. The spread between the established bank's 4.2% and the new promotional 4.6% is 40 basis points, or 0.4%. On $10,000, that delta represents $40 of additional yield over the course of an entire year.
40 bucks.
That is roughly $3.33 a month.
$3.
To capture that $3 a month, you have to research the new institution to ensure they are FDIC insured, open a new account, undergo the identity verification, update all your automated ACH routing numbers, wait for the test deposits to clear, and introduce another vector for security breaches into your life.
All for the price of a cheap cup of coffee.
You are expending high-leverage cognitive bandwidth for an immaterial return. It violates the core premise of focusing on the big wins. Your time is vastly better spent reading a book on negotiation to increase your primary income by $10,000 or analyzing the expense ratios in your 401k rather than chasing $3 a month in a taxable savings account.
You are picking up pennies in front of a steamroller of opportunity cost. Pick a solid, high-yield institution that is consistently in the top tier, automate the transfers, and close the browser.
Yes.
And if you are currently trapped at a legacy bank and need time to build this new infrastructure, you can still play offense. If you get hit with a monthly maintenance fee, you leverage the CAC dynamic we discussed with credit cards.
The script is identical. You escalate to a retention specialist. You state clearly that you are aware their customer acquisition cost is hundreds of dollars, and you ask them to waive the $15 maintenance fee to retain your deposits. The vast majority of the time, the algorithm will dictate that waiving the fee is the mathematically superior choice for the bank.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We started by plunging into the murky depths of financial psychology, identifying the invisible money scripts that dictate our behavior, and actively rejecting the seductive comfort of victim culture.
It's a lot to process, but it's essential.
We redefined wealth from mindless accumulation to the hyper-specific utility of the rich life. We transitioned to offense, reverse engineering the FICO algorithm to permanently lower our cost of capital, and weaponizing credit card rewards while neutralizing their fees.
Right.
We stared into the mathematical abyss of minimum payments and committed to ruthlessly eradicating debt through behavioral momentum. And finally, we fired the predatory legacy institutions to build a high-friction, highly automated, optimized infrastructure.
It really is a comprehensive systemic overhaul. But as we synthesize all of this, it raises the ultimate question for the listener. What is the actual objective here? Because if the goal of this deep dive is to turn you into an obsessive spreadsheet manager who tracks every single transaction and agonizes over daily market fluctuations, then we have completely failed.
That is a miserable existence. That's just a different flavor of anxiety.
Exactly. The objective is the exact opposite. The goal is the 85% solution. The goal is to endure the administrative friction once. You spend the 5 hours this weekend to open the Schwab checking, fund the high-yield savings, automate the credit card payments in full, and establish the routing rules. You build the machine.
And then you walk away from the machine.
You let the architecture operate autonomously. A fully optimized, mature financial system should require no more than 90 minutes of your attention per month. You are simply reviewing the dashboard, ensuring the automated transfers executed correctly, and returning to your actual life.
90 minutes a month to manage a system that guarantees lifelong wealth accumulation. But that reality brings us to a final, somewhat terrifying thought for you to ponder.
What's that?
We spend so much of our lives using financial scarcity as a universally acceptable excuse. I can't take that risk. I don't have the money. I can't start that business. I'm stressed about debt. I can't travel. I have to grind.
It is the ultimate shield against vulnerability.
Exactly. But if you actually execute this blueprint, if your debt is eradicated, your savings are automated, and your investments are compounding quietly in the background without your active input, that shield disintegrates. You lose your best excuse. When the money is finally handled and the underlying anxiety is permanently resolved, what are you going to do with that terrifying amount of freedom?
It shifts the burden entirely. It's no longer an economic problem, it's an existential one.
Once the financial friction is removed, are you ready for the reality that the only thing holding you back from actually living your rich life is you? The system is designed, the tools are in your hands, now it's up to you to execute. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take that first step today, get it 85% right, and we'll see you next time.